Hello golfers of Who Apply Golf Club. Welcome back. This is video number 3 in this lockdown series. My name is Ella and I am going to be taking you through an Ella Richardson movement sequence today, focusing on the rotation through the thoracic spine, along with some shoulder movements that are going to be really amazing for your shoulders and neck. You're going to feel amazing by the end of this. We will need some props today. What we will need is a dowel or a stick. I have just unscrewed the handle of my broom, which you can see right there. So that can work really well. Otherwise, if you don't have something like this handy, then the next best thing is a tea towel. And if you grab a tea towel, you're going to want to grab opposite corners and then just twirl it over on itself. And this is going to work pretty much the same. You're just going to have a couple of little flaggy ends sticking in your face sometimes. So if you do have a dowel or a broomstick that you can unscrew or a long stick, then just grab that. Okay, and the last item that we'll need is a cushion. Okay. So let's dive right in. Start on your back on the floor with a cushion handy. Clasp your fists together and reach your arms up to the ceiling. And we're just going to punch the arms or punch the fists up to the ceiling. That's going to round our upper back a little bit away from the floor. This is our protraction of the shoulder blades. And then you're just going to release that punching, let the shoulder blades come back down onto the floor nice and relaxed. And do that again. Punch the arms up to the ceiling, making the arms longer all the way from the shoulder blades. And then just let the shoulder blades settle back down again. Another 3 times. Punch and settle. Punch and settle. Last one. Punch and settle. All right. Turn onto your side and bring that cushion between your knees or thighs. Then bring your knees as close towards your ribs as you can comfortably, kind of like a fetal position here. Stretch your arms out in front of you, making crocodile arms, stacking the top palm on top of the bottom palm. We're going to do some circles with that top arm here. So start to bring that top arm up towards your ear. And as you reach that arm up, then you're going to allow your ribs and chest to rotate so that your chest can start to face the ceiling. Continue that big circle around with that top arm. As you approach that kind of capital T shape, you may need to just allow a bend in that elbow. Just soften that arm so that it can be heavy toward the floor, trying to keep the back of the hand as close to the floor as you can. So a bend in the elbow is totally fine. I have quite a bend. It's actually a 90-degree angle there, and that just makes it more comfortable for me and my shoulder. If you prefer to keep it straight, that is fine too. And continue that slow circle all the way down until your fingers are pointing down toward your feet. And then scrape your arm across the top of your hip, completing the circle back in the position that we started in with those crocodile arms. We'll do that again. You can start to do this at your own pace, just keeping it really nice and slow. And as you open that arm and the chest faces the ceiling, there should be some really nice stretching sensation across the front of that left side of the chest, or maybe through into the shoulder, maybe down the bicep and into the arm a little bit there. Good. We'll do that another couple of times. And as you do these circles, see whether you can make the movement as big as possible all the way from the shoulder blade. So you're trying to reach your arm as long as it will go throughout this entire movement. And if there's anybody that's not feeling a strong sensation as you do this, then you can make it a little bit more intense by keeping that top knee stacked directly on top of the bottom knee instead of allowing it to slide back a little as you open up. And that's going to bring a lot more sensation into your thoracic spine. So it's almost a feeling of pushing that top knee toward your anchored bottom hand as your top hand opens out to that capital T shape. All right, we're going to do that all on the other side. So flip yourself over. Keep that cushion between the knees or thighs. Start with your crocodile arms. Now we've got the other arm on top. Knees nice and close in towards your ribs. And then start to circle that top arm up towards your ear. As it reaches your ear or cheek, then you open your whole upper body, allowing it to roll so that your chest faces the ceiling. And then you can let that top elbow bend if you like, as you make that circle start to come down across the hip. That arm can straighten again. And completing it back in those crocodile arms. Keep going at your own pace or moving with me if you prefer. Reaching that top arm up toward the ear, rolling the chest and ribs to face the ceiling. Let that back of that hand scrape along the floor if it can. And if you can get the hand down, can you also get the elbow down? And for those who wanted more sensation, then you can always anchor that top knee on top of the bottom knee and don't let it slide back. But if the sensation is already strong enough, you can just let that top knee slide back as it wants to. One last circle. All right. After this, we're going to move into some exercises to warm up the abdominals. If you did the classes last week, you'll be a little bit familiar with these. We're going to add in a little bit extra today. Now you can put your pillow away. We're not going to be using it for the rest of the session today. All right. So feet on the floor, knees pointing up to the ceiling. Bring your hands in behind your skull and interlock the fingers. Then close your elbows all the way around your temples. Take an inhale here. As you exhale, come up off your shoulders, lifting the chest and the elbows up to the ceiling. And really slide your elbows further and further up as far as they'll go. Lean the head into the hands. We're just going to stay here for this first time. Breathing slowly. Every exhale, try and come up a little higher off the shoulder blades, leaning the head heavy still into the hands. One last breath here. And as you inhale, return your shoulders and head down to the floor. As you exhale, come back up into that same position again. Elbows reaching up, head heavy. All right, we're going to take a little turn through the ribs. Think as if your elbows are arrows and you want to point the arrows over toward your left knee. As you do that, can you also move the ribs with your arms? So we're not just moving the arms. Let your ribs rotate as well. Notice if your left shoulder blade has come down onto the floor, can you lift that elbow up a little higher to get that shoulder back off the floor? Inhale to turn back through center and come down to the floor. Exhale, come up off the shoulders. Take that little turn through the ribs, this time to the right. Elbows are going to point over toward your right knee. Lift that right elbow up a little higher, coming off that shoulder blade if you can. Keep the head leaning heavy into the hands. Press the feet down into the floor. That can really help to create some tension, extra tension through the core. And on the next inhale, turn back through center and come down to the floor. We're going to do that again and add one extra step. Exhale, come up off the shoulders. Turn through the ribs to the left. Good. Lean the head into the left hand. Reach that left elbow up to the ceiling. Then breathe your right arm. Straighten that right arm and slice it across your body, bringing the back of that hand to the outside of your left thigh. Now press the back of the hand into the thigh and the thigh back into the hand. So we're creating more tension there. Press the feet down, lift up through that left elbow, lean the head heavy. One last breath here. And then inhale, return everything back to the starting position on the floor. Exhale, come up off the shoulders, turn through the ribs to the right, lift that right elbow tip up higher, and slice that left arm across the body, bringing the back of the hand to the outside of the right thigh. Reach it a little bit further, making that arm a bit longer. Reach up into that right elbow, and now press the hand into the leg and the leg into the hand. Lean the head heavy, breathe. On your next inhale, return everything back to starting position. Whew, that was tough. I hope that your abs are burning or shaking. Mine were burning with that. We're going to go into some glute bridges, and while we're there, we're also going to do some wrist warm-ups because we're going to be doing a little bit of weight bearing on the wrists today. So make the feet wider than the hips, turn the toes out, bring the hands on top of the hip points, and push the hips up into the hands to bring the pelvis off the floor. Push down into the heels to feel those glutes activate a little bit. You can even stick your fingers into your buttocks, give them a little jab, tell them to dial up their effort from wherever it's sitting, dial it up another 20 or 30%. See if you can take it all the way up to 80 or even 90% effort there. We're going to maintain that effort and start to flap our legs. This is going to bring a little bit more effort into our glute max, maybe also the glute medius. So you're going to just flap your knees in a little bit and out and in and out and in and out. So it doesn't have to be a big movement. I prefer a small movement but fast, and that's going to really up that burn in your bum. And that's what we want. Keep pushing down into your heels as you do this. All right, keep that going. And I'm going to give you something to do with your hands now. If you can keep the knee flaps going, keep them going. If not, focus more on what we're going to be doing with our hands, because that's going to warm up your wrists. So now reach your arms up to the ceiling, fingertips pointing upwards, palms facing each other, and the hands are directly stacked over your shoulders. Close your fists in really tight as they'll go, like you're trying to squeeze water out of a stone. And then open your fists out wide, spreading the fingers wide as possible. And close it in as tight as possible and open as wide as possible. So keep doing this open and close with your fists. And you can speed up the movement, but don't lose the strength behind the movement, because that is what's going to warm up the tissues in the wrists and in the forearms, ready to bear some weight. If your knee flapping is really getting the burn on a little bit beyond what you feel comfortable doing right now, if it's starting to make your eyes water or your muscles cramp, you can just hold still instead, or even come back down to the floor as you finish the last few reps of these fist pumps. If you're good to keep going, you can just keep going with both. I'm going to speed up my wrist pumps a lot right now, but I'm going to keep them nice and strong. So you should be feeling the burn or the warmth spread from the wrists all the way up the forearms to the elbows, and maybe even up into your biceps and triceps. Once it reaches that point, that's when you know you're nice and warm. You can stop with the wrist pumps and with the knee flaps and slowly come back down to the floor. Whew. All right, we're ready to start moving. Roll onto your side and come onto your hands and knees into a quadruped position. So quadruped is just fancy word for hands and knees. We're going to go through a couple of spinal rolls before we start. This is going to we're going to be doing the same movement in a couple of, during the sequence. So I just want to be familiar with it now. So to start with, curl your spine so you're tucking your tailbone under and your chin comes into your chest. This is our spinal flexion right here. Push the floor away through the hands. Chin is in. Tailbone is tucked under, like you're a whimpering sad little dog. Okay. Now we're going to bring the mind's eye or the focus right down to the base of the spine into the tailbone or the sacrum, whichever you're more familiar with between those two bones. and start to lift the sacrum or tailbone up to the ceiling. And we're going to try and move segmentally through the spine rather than moving it as one unit. So just start by lifting the sacrum or tailbone up to the sky. And as you do that, try to keep the rest of your spine curled in the shape that we began with in that flexion. But as you lift that tailbone up, that's kind of tilting the pelvis forward, by the way, you can start to let that movement travel up the spine. So we're slowly moving the spine into extension. And as if you could feel that movement creeping up your spine, like a pair of fingers walking up your spine, just start to let the rest of the spine come into extension. The last thing to move will be your head as the extension reaches your neck, and you can look straight ahead. Okay, now we're going to do that again, but the opposite direction. The opposite movements. Now we're going to go back to flexion, starting in the same way down in the pelvis. So start to tuck your tailbone under, or your pelvis under, and try to keep the rest of your spine in extension. So it's really hard to do, and it takes a lot of focus. And then slowly start to let that flexion roll or ripple up the spine, all the way up into the neck until your chin is tucked under again, or tucked into your chest again. You can start to do this in your own time. We'll do one more round on our own. So starting with the tailbone, lift it up and let that action travel gently up the spine. You can use your abs here to help control the movements of the spine. Tightening across the abs will really help to pinpoint the movement where you want it to go. Pushing still hard into the hands so that we're not slumping in the shoulders. Once you have got the face looking straight ahead, then start again down in the tailbone, tucking it under. Letting that rounding travel all the way slowly through the lumbar spine, up through the thoracic spine, and finally into the neck. All right. Now that was a lot of time spent on the wrists, so if they're feeling it, shake it out. If they're complaining, which is really common because it's not a common thing to spend time like this with our wrists in this position. If they're complaining, you can grab your cushion back and put the heels of your palms down on the cushion with your fingers or finger knuckles on the floor, and that's just going to open up that angle at the wrist so it has an easier time at bearing the weight in that position. Okay, so we're going to start with the sequence now. From your quadruped position here, bring your right leg forward next to your right hand. We're going to replace the hand with the foot, so walk the foot over. Now we've got the foot directly under the knee. Left hand, shift it to where it needs to be so it's directly under your left shoulder. And then push down into that left hand so that we're going from a sinking into the shoulder position to a strong, active position of the shoulder. And with your right arm, we're going to do those same circles that we started with on our sides before. So start with your right fingers pointing down at the floor. And then start to bring your arm up towards your ear. Now slowly, slowly, go really slowly. As your arm reaches your ear, your ribs and chest are already starting to turn as if you wanted to look under your armpit or like you're doing a freestyle stroke in the pool. Keep pushing down into your left hand. Then allow the circling to continue all the way up to the ceiling. Keep pushing down into that left hand. And once your fingers are pointing to the ceiling, your chest and ribs are facing the side or facing that right knee. Keep that circling going all the way back until your fingers are pointing back behind you. And all the way down until the fingers are pointing back at the floor. And as the arm starts to point down toward the floor, the chest and ribs will roll back so that the chest is facing the floor again as well. We'll do that again. Keep the circle going. Reach the arm up towards the ear. As it does that, you're rolling the ribs and chest to face that right knee. You can let your left ear dangle heavy down toward the shoulder, but don't lose the strength in that shoulder. Push down into the hand. Keep circling that right arm back until it's pointing behind you. And down toward the floor, and the chest and ribs roll to face the floor. Last circle here. Right arm reaching forward and up, chest and ribs rolling, push down into that left hand, dangle the head heavy down toward that left shoulder, fingers point back behind us, and complete the circle until you're pointing down at the floor. All right, we're going to do that on the other side. I'm changing directions so that I can keep looking at you. You don't have to change directions. In your quadruped, you're going to bring that left foot forward and replace the left hand with the foot. So the foot's directly under the knee. Good. And your right hand wants to be kind of behind in the same kind of vertical line as your right hand for balance. Right hand right under the shoulder. Now push down into the hand to create strength through that right shoulder joint. Left finger start by pointing down at the floor, and then start to circle that arm forward toward the ear and up toward the ceiling. So again, here at this point, your ribs and chest are facing your left knee. Continue that left arm circling all the way back behind you. Push down into that right hand still, and circling until those fingers are pointing the floor. And at that point, the chest and ribs are also facing the floor. 2 more of those. Circling the arm forward and up. Press down into the right hand. Let the right ear dangle heavy down toward the shoulder. And circling that arm back behind you. And letting the ribs and chest roll toward the floor as the fingers point down. Last circle, reaching the arm forward and up. Good. Reaching the arm up to the ceiling, backwards, and down. All right. Okay. Come back into your quadruped position. We're going to go through 3 of those spinal rolls that we did before. So start in your rounded position, tailbone tucked under, chin into the chest. Lift your tailbone up and let that movement travel up your spine, slowly with control until your head lifts up. And then tuck the tailbone under and let that rolling motion roll up the spine until the chin comes back into the chest. 2 more times in your own time. I'm just about to finish my 3rd roll. So hopefully we're all in the same sort of place right now. Once you have completed those spinal rolls, we're going to move into the next exercise. So keep your hands under your shoulders, walk your knees back until they are just behind the hips. We're going to do some half push-ups here. So you're going to clench your bum, clench your abs, and just bend the elbows an inch or so, nothing more than 2 inches, and then push into the hands to come back to the kind of half plank position. And then do that again, just an inch or 2 bend of the elbows and push. So it's just a little warm up for the shoulders. And on this time, can you lower down with control to the floor, letting the hips land first and belly, and keeping the chest lifted and shoulder heads lifted up away from the floor. I'm going to turn myself around because I've got all my gear at the other end. You stay where you are. All right, on your belly here. You're going to bring your forehead down to the floor. And now try and scrunch the front of your body to make it shorter. That means tucking your tailbone under and bringing your front ribs down a little bit closer toward the front of your pelvis or toward your pubic bone. So we just scrunched ourselves like a caterpillar, and that's going to help us create this hollow body shape on the floor. Okay, so the forehead's down. Punch your fists down into the floor. Elbows are pointing up to the ceiling, and the shoulder blades are squeezing in toward each other. Now check that hollow body shape, that it's still there. So it feels like you could almost lift your rib cage up away from the floor.
Punch your fists down into the floor. Keep squeezing your shoulder blades. And now just hover your fists a millimeter off the floor by squeezing the shoulder blades in toward each other, elbows still pulling up to the ceiling. Now punch the fists down again and lift and hover the fists. So it's a teeny tiny movement, but it takes a lot of effort in the shoulders, a lot of effort in the abs and glutes to maintain the stability throughout your torso. So this is option 1 for this movement. Now option 2, if this is easy for you, only if this is easy for you. Option 2 is, instead of that lift and hover, you're going to lay your palms back under the shoulders onto the floor and push up back into that half plank position. And then lower with control, like a knees down push up back into that hollow body shape on the floor. Punch your fists down. And then palms on the floor, pushing up to that knees push up position and slowly lowering down into that hollow body position on the floor. Punch down. One last time. If you're doing the hovers, do the hovers. If you're doing the push up, do the push up. All right. One last punch for everybody here. And then we're all going to put the hands under the shoulders. And for those who can do the push-up, do the push-up. For those who are finding it really hard, you could try the push-up to get up, and it might look more like this to get up. Or alternatively, put your elbows and forearms on the floor and push up from there. Okay, back into our quadruped position here. We're going to do that again. Same sequence as before. We'll go through it a little bit faster, since you know what's coming, and I'm going to change up that last exercise on our bellies with something different in the next round. So bring your right foot to take the place of the left. Left hand is under the shoulder and push it down into the floor. 3 slow circles with your right arm. Reach it forward first and then up to the ceiling. Let your ribs and chest turn and back behind you, and let the ribs and chest roll toward the floor as the fingers point down. Forward and up. Back behind you and down to the floor. Forward and up. Back behind you and down to the floor. Bring that right hand to the floor, come back to your quadruped and step that left foot forward. Right hand under the shoulder, push down into the hand and start to circle your left arm forward and up. And back behind you and down to the floor. Forward and up. Rolling the chest and ribs back behind you and down to the floor. Still pushing strong down into that right hand. Forward and up. Push down into the right hand and back behind you and down to the floor. 2 hands on the floor, 1 spinal roll here. So start with your curled under spine. Now lift your tailbone first and start to let that ripple up your spine. And starting at the tailbone to tuck it under when you're ready. Good. Come back to neutral. Step your knees back behind you. This time, we're going to lower straight down to the floor with control. Good. Now we're going to use that dowel or the tea towel. So if you're using the tea towel, you've already, hopefully before, done the little twirl. And you're going to grab it at the tips so that you, at the very, very tips, that should you want to be able to grab the longest tea towel that you can. So if yours is a bit short for what we have coming next and you struggle with the exercise, you can pause the video and grab a longer tea towel and try it with that. You really want to be able to have a wide grip here. For those who have the dowel, you're going to be able to shift your grip to wherever you need it to be. I'm going to show you guys with the dowel what we're doing. So we're going to take that same hollow body shape with the forehead on the floor, tuck the pelvis under and bring the front ribs down closer toward the front of the pelvis.
Reach your arms forward, gripping your dowel or your tea towel. You can keep your forehead or nose on the floor, or you can lift it to hover it if you prefer. If you hover it, you're still looking at the floor. Your nose is just off the floor. You're not going to look forward for this. All right, squeeze your buttocks, keep that hollow body shape, and now lift your hands up off the floor. Now, if they don't lift, that's okay. I'm going to give you another option, so just hang in there tight. If they are lifting, I'm going to show you what movement we're going to be doing. So if your arms are able to lift up off the floor, we're going to pull this bar up above, keep it behind the head, and pull it all the way back behind you until it rests on your shoulders. And then reach it forward. Keep that hollow body shape. You're going to probably want to try and lift up like this, and that is a major cheat spell. So don't let it happen. Try to keep your nose facing the floor, hollow body, and just pulling the bar back to the shoulders and reaching it forward. And when you need a rest, you can take a rest. For those who found it too hard to lift the arms up off the floor, don't fret. You can let go of your prop after all that hard work trying to find it, right? You can let go of your prop and just keep your hands on the floor. Just slide your hands until they come back into kind of a W shape where you squeeze your shoulder blades together and make fists with your hands, and then try to roll your shoulders so that your fists come higher than your elbows. Elbows roll down to the floor, and your fists kind of rise higher if they can than the elbows. And then you're going to keep it that high as you can, reaching the fists forward into a Y position. And then come back right into your W and forward. Whew. And you can do all of that with the hands sliding on the floor if that's where you're at. Once you reach your W, then you're going to lever your hands off the floor. And to slide them forward, bring them back and reach forward. Okay, if you've been doing it from the start with the dowel, good on you. Your shoulders are probably screaming at you by now. I hope you took a rest or two. Finish up whichever rep you're on, everybody. And we're going to finish with that. Cool. When you finish that last rep, bring your hands back in under your shoulders or forearms. We're going to be pushing back up into our quadruped. So whichever worked for you before, hands or forearms, pushing back up away from the floor. Walk your knees forward. And that's our sequence for today. So if you loved it, you can always go back through and replay it and do it another few times, or do it from your own memory. And if you're done for the day, then well done. You did really well. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope your shoulders and your necks feel amazing. And I'll see you all again soon for the next video that's coming up this week. Same focus. We're going to be doing more twisty, turny movements and stuff for the shoulders. Thanks, everybody. Bye.